love how in the last episode of this podcast, I said I was going to try harder to record on a more consistent basis. And I already messed up. I already goofed. The cadence is supposed to be every Monday or Wednesday I post, depending on if I edit or not. And the last time I posted or uploaded on my YouTube channel was not last Monday, but the Monday before that. So 2 weeks. 2 weeks ago. It'll be 3 weeks. It's going to be a week gap in between the episodes. So I'm not keeping up with the posting cadence like I said I was going to. So shame on me. Bad. Very bad. In other news, Johnny Depp won the case, which is crazy. It's not that I wasn't expecting that. I honestly was expecting that. But then my girlfriend, Hannah, had brought up the really good point that his team had to prove a bunch of different, factors to be true in order to win the defamation trial, right? So that's pretty difficult to do. Congrats to Johnny Depp and his lawyer team. Amber Heard, tough titties, man. I don't know. You did shitty things, you get shitty results. That's the way the world works. And actually, on that note, I was having this conversation like a while ago, obviously off camera, and it was about like, what the hell does Amber Heard do now, right? Because she ain't ever working in Hollywood again. That's a damn certainty, right? Because nobody wants to work with a woman who took a shit in, her partner's bed and also beat the shit out of him and also threw a wine bottle and severed his finger, all that, or vodka bottle, all that crazy stuff, right? Nobody wants to work with a psychopath like that. So Johnny Depp, although he did experience many bad years because of the fact that he had this label put onto him. He was branded as an abuser when clearly he wasn't. I mean, he won the trial, right? So clearly he went through those hardships, but now his label, his slate is clean. So he's chilling now. Amber, she's in a shitty situation. Not that I feel bad for her, but I was thinking, right? Like, if I was in her situation, what would I do? I think there's a clear path forward for Amber Heard. I think she got to do porn. I know that's like a crazy 180. Like, that's probably not you, the listener, what you were expecting to hear come out of my mouth. But I genuinely think she should go into pornography. The reason why, right? You already know all your brand deals, unless it's like, I was jokingly going to say vodka bottles, but it wouldn't be, right? They're gone. You're not making money from brand deals anymore. You're not going to get hired in Hollywood. The last thing you'll probably ever be featured in is that movie Aquaman 2 Into the Lost City or whatever the fuck it's called. And you're only in that allegedly for like 5 minutes. So they cut your ass out that movie anyways. You're never going to be on the silver screen again. So what do? What do I do if I'm Amber Heard in this situation? She ain't look as good as she did a couple years ago. Obviously, the stress, whatever got to her, right? But she still is relatively, attractive. And she's also a celebrity. Even though she's known for the worst of reasons now, she still is a celebrity. So just start you an OnlyFans, or go out to, I'm sure Brazzers, actually, that's not true. I'm very certain a lot of those big porn labels or companies, production companies, they would not sign her as a porn star because of the fact that she has those horrible allegations or those horrible labels tied to her name. So I think the clear path forward for her is obviously starting an OnlyFans page. That's like actually legitimately what I think. Whether you guys think I'm crazy or not, let me know in the comments. Let me know in the comment sections below. But no, seriously, like that is legitimately what I think she should do. And it's a little interesting. Obviously, as you can see here, no guest for this week's episode. I'm in a tough predicament, man. Let me tell you, my sister, I wanted to do a podcast episode with her. I'm pretty sure in one of the previous episodes, recent ones, I said that one of the next episodes that I was going to do would have her in it, would be featuring her. She's obviously not here, hasn't been here featured on this channel for quite some time, and that's because she was away at school. She comes back, now get this, she's in Colombia. Colombia. Literally, South America. She's down there having fun in the freaking junglas of my mother's motherland. Funny enough. I'm not, obviously. I'm still stateside, recording right now in New York. She is having fun on a farm that they rented, like a crazy ass house that fits like 35 people. It's a mansion, okay? This thing is a mansion. They got all the bottles. Liquor I've never even heard of before. For all my Hispanic people out there, lulo. You know what lulo is, right? It's like a sour citrusy fruit. I don't know what the English, I don't know if they call it lulo. I don't know what the translation for that fruit would be. But that shit is one of my favorite flavors. I haven't been to Colombia in 12 years. She went. She's with my mom and a bunch of other family members. Literally, there's an entire family reunion occurring right now as I speak in Colombia. My father and I were not a part of it. Why, might you ask, am I not down there? It's quite simply because of the fact that my dog is fat and old and has diabetes. If you follow my TikTok channel, which I know some of the subscribers to this channel actually probably came from that one TikTok that blew up of mine like a while ago. You will know I made like a really quick, stupid video about the fact that my dog has diabetes. So obviously it's an unfortunate situation, but my dad, this also is kind of fucked in two ways because my dad is like, has like a phobia of needles. So basically I find myself in a predicament where Diva needs to be injected twice a day. Diva's my dog. Diva needs to be injected twice a day, right? With insulin. Otherwise, she'll croak because ketone levels, I'm not a fucking veterinarian. I don't know shit about insulin and diabetes, but I mean, it makes sense, right? She doesn't get her medicine, she dies. So she has to be injected twice a day on a timely, strict regimented schedule. My dad has a severe phobia of needles. He doesn't like, he has to have a butterfly needle to get his blood drawn. Like he's that bad with it. He gets all like, pale. He gets all like lightheaded. He just, for some reason, he's not well around needles. He doesn't like them. He doesn't do good around them. Fine. I get it. Everybody has their own little, quirks and traits and fears and all that stuff. So he kept saying, I can't inject Diva for the longest time. And my mom and I were the ones that did it before, right? So we were taking turns going at it. I think she would do the morning injection and then I would do the late night injection. And then my mom was like, I'm going to need you to do me a favor and just inject her when I'm gone with Catalina, right? Because your dad can't do it. I'm like, all right, cool. Tell me how my dad conquers his lifelong fear of needles now. This isn't something that he developed late in life. Like, this is lifelong. He's always had this. He somehow conquered it. I mean, not with himself, but with Diva, who is his favorite child by far, right? He babies the fuck out of that dog. He somehow conquered it with her 2 days before my mom left. 2 days. So now obviously I can't just ask for time off of work to go down to Colombia. I can't, all the planning that would be required for me to be able to go on this trip, it can't happen within a 2 days notice. So I want to thank you, Dad. Shout out to you, Father, for being able to conquer your fears. This is a legitimate thing, actually. Props to him for actually being able to conquer his fears, but on a 2-day notice. Because if you had done it before, I would have been in Colombia right now partying. Maybe splicing in some footage of some coke on I don't know. I honestly don't know. Because I haven't been there in 12 years. But Gata's down there. She's sending me snaps. It looks amazing. The only thing that I noticed and I forgot about this, right? Because I obviously did spend some time down there. And it was really interesting how in Colombia, again, 12 years ago was the last time I was there. I remember that all the houses, my family's homes included, or most of the homes, right? Not all of them, but most of the homes are open floor plan, but in a way where there's not a lot of separation in between rooms and a lot of these open window. It's not even like a window. It's literally a wall will be missing from the house. There's a lot of room for airflow within the household, which is amazing. And then I was realizing why, and this kind of put how good I have it in perspective, or we have it, people who live in first world countries, because I don't think Colombia is technically considered a first world country. They do that, what I assume would be because they need airflow because most homes don't have AC. Only the ballers could afford central AC in their home, right? Let alone, an AC unit. AC units aren't really popular in Colombia. And now that I remember thinking back to my trips there when I was a youth, I actually do recall that simple things that we take for granted here in the US, not to get super, reflective and all that, but simple things that we take for granted here in the US, like hot water, that shit don't really exist over there. Because I don't know if this is the case now, but 12 years ago, I keep fucking saying 12 years ago, the last time I was there was no hot water. It's only ice cold water, which is actually not the worst thing because of the fact that it is a tropical country. especially where my family lives. So it gets really hot and humid. So a really cold shower, not the worst of things. It could be worse, right? It could be, being stuck with hot water in that situation. I think you just have a heat stroke, but it's ice cold water. So that's definitely an interesting way to start your mornings. And then I think like the very last time I was there, I think, if I recall correctly, my family just had purchased like their very first water heater for the shower, right? Obviously, you could just heat the water up on the stove, but for the shower. And I remember thinking, this is fucking unique because I was sitting there. I think I was like 10, or no, I was like 12. I'm sitting in the shower or standing in the shower. The water's hitting me and I hear like an electrical buzz and I see a wire coming out of like where the shower head like goes into the wall. I see an electrical wire come from there out of the shower and into the bathroom, and I'm like, that's fucking unique. And I'm listening. I could hear like a zzz, like an electrical buzz, and I freaking realized that the water heater. I don't know if this technology is still being used there because I would imagine it's pretty dangerous. I mean, I'm no electrical engineer, but I feel like water and electricity don't mix that well, right? So I guess it was passing a current through the pipe or a part of the pipe or the water itself, and that's how the water was being heated. I remember thinking, like hearing this thing turn on, sitting there getting bathed in hot water and being like, is this thing about to fucking electrocute me at any minute? Like it's literally right there. I can hear the electricity just coming off of this thing. So it was a little bit concerning. I definitely did not feel like, taking a bath with like a hair dryer or like an electric UV. It sounded like a UV like fly killer machine, right? Like a fly trap. I can't even talk right now. But yeah, it's really interesting to, think back on that. And I can't wait for Kata to come back because when she does, again, I'm going to have her on this podcast. She's going to sit down. I'll put the mic in front of her and just pick her brain on how the country has changed. Hopefully she brings back good news because I just remember really good things. I remember the food being delicious. Obviously, she snapped me like a bunch. But one of the things now, if I were to go back on this trip and when I will go back in the future, one of the things that I could do now is obviously drink. And over there, Gata was sending me Snapchats of shit like, the reason I mentioned Lulo before is because they have like Lulo liquor, which is very interesting. Say that 5 times fast. Lulo liquor, Lulo liquor. Lulo liquor, right? Or liqueur. I don't know how that would taste. If for some reason in my mind's eye or in my taste buds, like I imagine it tasting delicious. Like that shit, for some reason to me, just seems like it would be super duper refreshing. And I'm kind of sad that I missed out because there's a lot of family members down there in Colombia that I haven't seen in the longest time. I will say this, for any of my biracial, or actually you don't even have to be biracial. If you're a minority, not even a minority either, if you're of a culture that speaks a different language other than English, right? Your primary language is something else other than English, obviously Colombians being Spanish, and you yourself don't speak that language that well, this message is gonna kind of resonate with you. One of the things that I was kind of relieved about when I found out that I was not going on this trip to Colombia with my mom and my sister was the fact that if I were to go, right, it would be amazing to see all these family members that I haven't seen in the longest time. Obviously, that goes without saying. But I wouldn't have to worry about speaking and engaging with them in Spanish because I haven't practiced it as much as I should, to the point where if I'm in public, if I'm a little drunk, that'll come out no problem, right? And I understand it perfectly fine. And I could actually speak it fairly well, more than what you, the listener, are probably imagining, right? But it's nowhere near the level of Spanish that a native Spanish speaker would have, obviously, because I did not grow up there. So my vocabulary is a lot more simple than their vocabulary. So they might use big words. I don't even know all the words in English. How the hell am I supposed to, engage in conversation when these people are using 4 or 5 syllable words in Spanish? I'm going to be like, what did you just repeat it? Come again? Let me get Google Translate on my phone because I'm going to get lost in conversation, right? But that's not even the biggest part of it because I don't have a fear of not understanding a word. I could just ask. That's not really the thing that I was hesitant about. The thing that I'm more so uneasy about is going to Colombia, would have been going to Colombia and engaging with and talking with my family members and making like grammatical mistakes and pronunciation mistakes and errors. For some reason, that just really fucks with me. And the reason why is, well, not the reason why, one of the reasons why is because I have a difficult time with like conjugations and all this stuff. Obviously, Spanish is a very beautiful but complex language, as most languages are. And I don't have the best grasp on it. So to go there to that country and then, trying to communicate how much I've missed these family members and all that stuff, catching up, telling all these crazy stories from, my time here in the States in the past 12 years that they don't know about, and their respective time in Colombia that I don't know about, and just catching up like that. Obviously, it has to be in Spanish because my Spanish, I would venture to say, is better, like far better than their English. But it still is a scary feat or a scary thing to kind of go through. So I want to see what my sister thinks about that, because I know that her Spanish is better than mine, but it's not like insanely better than mine. So that's one of the things I kind of want to get her perspective on is, how was it going there and trying to talk to all these family members that we haven't seen in years, literally since we're like fetuses, right? How is it going there and catching up with all these people, all these fine folk, all these paisanos, all that shit? Just kidding, because I don't think they're from Medellin. I don't really. Paisano is a term for someone from Colombia that is specifically from Medellin. Most of our family's in Cali and Sevilla, a very small town. But yeah, I'm curious to see what her reaction to that is. Obviously, she has my mom to speak English and help her out if she gets stuck with anything. And my uncle Andres, he's not going to be of help though, because obviously if you go back and watch the episodes, you'll see he's a little bit of a jokester and stuff like that. I know for a fact if I was in that situation, I would be like, yo, I need some help here. He would just be like, look at you, ain't no shit. And he would like make the situation worse. So that's one of the reasons that like I'm not the most sad that I couldn't go. Like at least that's what I tell myself, right? You got to be able to cope with that somehow, that I'm having severe FOMO. I'm looking at the camera right now. I don't know if, hopefully I edit this in post, but if you can see top of my knees right here, I'm sorry. This is a very low sitting couch. Again, budget studio. My fat ass is definitely causing this couch to sink in more than it should. But yeah, so that's my plans for one of the future episodes whenever she gets back. If she happens to, want to record a podcast, hopefully she does. We'll go into that good stuff because there's a lot of good stuff to talk about there. The food, there's just so much culture and shit that I know I've experienced, but that I've kind of missed out on because I haven't gone back to touch base on my roots and stuff like that in the longest time. One thing that I will do immediately upon arrival is definitely go to get a big ass cholado. I really hope that this is what I'm about to say it is, because if it's not, my fellow Colombians are about to absolutely shit on me. It's like a shaved ice with fruit and condensed milk just squirted all over the top of it, and it's delicious. It's so refreshing. It's like perfect for the hot climate, and it's not as heavy and as gluttonous as like a full-blown fucking sundae, right? Because all that sugar, all that dairy is gonna make me but condensed milk, I can handle it. I can manage with that. And obviously fruit, not bad, and shaved ice, it's just water. And with like fruit flavoring too, like syrups and stuff like that. So it's like a shaved ice, but better in my opinion, because it's Colombian. Obviously I'm biased, but yeah, can't wait to have that conversation with her. What I really wanted to talk about today was more so, my thoughts on. So I literally just today posted a TikTok about, by the way, if you aren't following my TikTok, please follow it. I think the link is in the channel somewhere in the about section, and also on the channel banner if you are on desktop. It's also just the same username as this channel, Charlas with Chung. So if you could go and follow, that would be greatly appreciated. If for whatever reason, someone watching this isn't following my TikTok, please go follow my TikTok, because I try to be more funny and more over the top there. Since it's like shorter durations, it's harder to be over the top, really exaggerated and funny when you're talking by yourself for an extended period of time. But that's the beauty of the podcast, medium. But yeah, one of the things I wanted to talk about was the fact that Top Gun Maverick just came out this past weekend. Pretty sure like this past weekend. So it's been out for a couple days now. And I saw the original Top Gun. I'm not a child of the 80s, obviously. I would be a lot older if I was. But I really do or did like the movie, the original Top Gun, when I saw it. Tom Cruise, I don't know. This guy's like 67 years old. And he's fucking flying fighter jets, jumping off of buildings, doing the most stuff, like the most insane action sequences and stunts that I know if I were to attempt a single scene that he has gone through, every CL, MCL, ACL, all that shit, PCL if there is one, would just snap on instant, because this guy's doing things like jumping off of roofs, like in Mission Impossible. He broke his ankle. There's like been plenty of press on that, but he jumped off a roof of a building, lands, tries to like recover or something, and I guess like from the impact of his foot going into the wall, because it was like from a high altitude, he snapped his ankle like in half. And he's well into his middle age, if not getting into like the elderly. He's like right on the cusp of being like, an elderly citizen. So it's pretty bad. I don't know how he has to be taking TRT. I don't know how the motherfucker's still alive. Maybe Scientology is the key. I don't know what they be doing in those Scientologist churches, or if they even have churches. But whatever they're doing clearly seems to be working for that motherfucker, because he is old but very well. And before the movie even starts, he goes in and he's talking about, this is right as the movie starts. He comes in, he's like, oh, thank you guys so much for watching. It's been years in the making. He says and clarifies that these are real G's. So it's not CGI. Well, obviously some of it is, but most of the action sequences where you see the actors being put in those situations, they are in actual fighter jets. And it's insane to me because you can actually tell. I coincidentally have watched a lot of videos on like the physics of fighter pilots and fighter jets, and the amount of like physical requirements and strain that goes behind flying one of these fucking machines, to the point where modern day fighter aircraft, high performance aircraft, the only limitation for their performance is actually the human that's piloting the damn thing. One of the biggest factors being G-force, right? So that's just basically, for those of you who don't know, the amount of G's that your body undergoes. So right now, currently, everyday people, for the most part, 100% of the time, are experiencing 1 G, right? 1 gravity, or 1 G is basically equivalent to like 1 atmosphere of pressure, or not atmosphere of pressure, 1 like times our Earth's gravitational force. That's what it is. So when you're doing 2 G's, it's 2 times that, so on and so forth, right? Not a scientist, sorry about that. But in the movie, he specifies these are real G's, and you could kind of see it because, again, in all the YouTube videos I've seen and all of the research I've done, just because I nerd out over like physics and shit like that, you see these fighter jets, what they do is that part of their training is just to see what their limitations are with G-force. And I think there's like a specified number that you have to be able to endure. And it's innate in every person. And depending on the person, it's like just genetically speaking, for some people, for some reason, some people are just hardwired to be able to withstand more G's right off the bat than others. And those people, it's like the 1% of those people that are actually able to go and pilot one of these aircraft, because we're experiencing 1 G. 3 G's, around 3 G's is when people start to get pretty uncomfortable. These guys are pulling like 6, 7, 8 G's, depending on the turn. So it's really crazy to see, because in the movie, there are scenes where, when you pull back or you do a really hard turn, when the plane shifts, right? It's kind of like when you do a really hard turn in a car, everything on your dashboard kind of slides across. It's the same thing, but your body is now, there's all this downward force on your body, so that directly equates to the amount of G's that you're experiencing. And if you have 2, 3 G's, you're uncomfortable. 6 G's, all the blood that's in your head and your brain, it gets pulled down to the bottom of your body. Obviously, you don't need to be a doctor to know that no blood in your brain is not a good fucking thing. So what ends up happening is this thing called, what the fighter pilots refer to as G-lock, which is basically you pass out because of the fact that there's so much force being exerted on you because of the increased amount of G's, that you just black out from lack of blood supply to the brain. and lack of oxygen supply. So it's crazy to see that like these people actually went through that. And the reason you could tell is because there's some clips where you see their cheeks and all the meat on their face being pulled down, like just yanked down, and you see all of their like bone structures and cheekbones just kind of being pulled down, not to like an extreme amount, but you could definitely notice it. And one of the details within that movie, by the way, if you can't tell already, I love the movie, but one of the details within that movie was the fact that when they were doing these really high G turns, right? High G aerial maneuvers, you hear Tom Cruise's character. It's a really subtle detail. You hear Tom Cruise's character do it. You hear most of the fighter pilots do it. They kind of like sit back and they go like that. Like they're hunkering and like bracing, right? They're like going like that. And they're doing like a very sharp breathing technique. And that's actually a real technique, which is fascinating that they got that detail down to like a science. Because I don't remember it being in the first one, but it definitely was in this one because I obviously just saw it. And the reason they do that, and this is a real technique, where a fighter pilot, when they go into the jet, they have to wear a G-force suit or like a suit, right? Like a special suit that basically compresses your legs to like an extreme amount. Like there's laces on the back, like on the hamstring area, or you just have to tie it really tight so that the amount of like compression on your legs and therefore the blood vessels in your legs is very high at all times. So what a lot of these fighter pilots will do right as they're experiencing these high G turns and aerial maneuvers, right as they're performing them, they'll squeeze all of their leg muscles and their glute muscles, their ass muscles basically, right? Extremely hard. They do really hard contractions to kind of force all of the blood from their lower extremities back up into their torso and, hopefully get it into the head. So what they're doing is they're basically just manually overriding their body, pumping all the blood or forcing the blood back up above their waist. And then by breathing in a certain way and forcing like pressure internally into your abs and pushing out through your abs, you're making it so that blood stays in and goes to your head and brain, so you can actually endure a higher amount of G's. And the really good ones, the really good pilots, will do this to perfection, to the point where they're able to think perfectly fine and perform crazy amounts of like high risk maneuvers while enduring insane G's for like a good amount of time, like 10, 15, 20, even 30 seconds at a time, depending on like what aerial maneuvers they're trying to perform, right? So that's something that they got down to a T in the movie, which is amazing. And if you don't believe me that this is some real stuff that we're talking about here, just go up and look up Smarter Every Day on YouTube. He did an amazing video a little while back going over the physics and the physical strain. He partnered with, I think, the Air Force's Thunderbirds, which is kind of like a sector of the Air Force that is dedicated in displaying the amount of skill and professionalism needed to operate aircraft at a high level. So they're basically like demonstration pilots for the Air Force, right? And they do like crazy shows and stuff like that. I think they're based like down in the Southeast somewhere. But they do like all these amazing shows, and he partnered with them, and he was actually able to go up into one of these fighter jets. So they start doing these turns, and you can tell like he's like supposed to be your everyday man in the situation, and he was barely able to hold on to consciousness at like 6 or 7 G's. I think it was like 7.2 was his highest in the video, and these people are going to like 9, which 2 G difference is insane. Like that's a really big deal. But the thing that was like fascinating is the fact that he was barely able to hold on to consciousness at 7.2 G's, right? But if you watch the entirety of the video, you'll see that he actually says that around 3 G's, he lost the ability to think, because your brain is like, it still has blood in it. You're able to stay awake, but your ability to perform critical thinking and creative problem solving, all that crazy shit that you need in obviously high stress situations, it just rapidly goes down the shitter. So you see this guy in the back of this fighter jet. He obviously doesn't have any control over the aircraft. It's the professional, military man in the front, in the cockpit, in the front seat, controlling the thing that's actually piloting the vehicle or the aircraft. And Dustin is his name, from Smart Every Day. He's in the back seat. You see him, he basically just says like, I lost the ability to think. He's out. He's like, what is going on here, blah, blah, blah. And he's forming coherent sentences, but it's just like, he's a smart guy. He's an engineer graduate, I'm pretty sure, but He just said himself that he was not able to think, which is insane because these pilots, they're able to do like 9G pulls while being able to perform in high stress situations. And this movie perfectly captures that. And Maverick is a fucking bad ass because, I mean, this is known from the first movie, but no spoilers. But throughout the movie, he just does some insane stuff. Like, he's constantly showing these other trainees, right, that he is the best of the best. That he's over here doing the most risky things, performing like turns. I keep saying aerial maneuvers, but I don't know what, like aerial acrobatics is probably the more accurate term, to a T, right? Obviously, it's not actually Tom Cruise, but I love the character of Maverick. And actually, one of my favorite like dynamics within that movie was the relationship between Rooster, which is Goose's son, and Maverick. If you didn't watch the original Top Gun, right? If you didn't watch Top Gun at all, you're living under a fucking rock. Go watch it. Obviously, at this point, you know it's about like fighter pilots. But in the original Top Gun, it's about people trying to become the best fighter pilots in the Navy. And Maverick, played by Tom Cruise, his character has his wingman Goose, and in a tragic accident, Goose dies. And now in this movie, you kind of are able to see this like self-loathing and like heavy burden that Maverick carries with him because of the fact that Goose died all those years ago under his piloting, while he was piloting, and it weighs on him, and he carries that throughout the film. And then as the film progresses, you see this interesting dynamic and relationship flourish like throughout the film, which is awesome because the movie has like a bunch of layers to it. On the surface, it's a really, really, really kick-ass action movie with some insane action sequences. There were moments where I'm literally like at the edge of my seat. I was making facial expressions. I caught myself. I'm like my jaw dropped. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, I was tense. I was anxious at certain points. Great stuff. But then there's also other layers where you kind of see like a father-son dynamic, like a good friend dynamic, all played through like Tom Cruise's character, Maverick, and it's just really good. I mean, there's romance in the movie too. I feel like it wasn't necessarily thrown in there, but it was kind of weird because I don't recall Jennifer Connelly's character. I have to go back and look this up, but I don't think Jennifer Connelly's character was in the first one because I remember the first romantic interest in the first Top Gun being the instructor, and I don't think she was played by Jennifer Connelly. So besides the romance, everything else about the movie I fucking loved. And it's not that I disliked the romance. It was okay, all right? It wasn't really needed, but everything else was fantastic. I gave that movie, I watched it with my dad. My dad and I both gave it the same rating of a 9.5. I am not the type of person who goes in and watches every movie and they're like, this is the best fucking movie. The movies that I love, I will die on a hill for, and I'll hype them up to like the nth degree. But this movie I really do think is deserving of like all the praise it's been getting on social media. And Miles Teller is amazing in that movie. But one of the things that the reason why I brought this up and I said to go follow my TikTok is because I posted a TikTok today that I was basically talking about this whole movement that's going through TikTok right now where these dudes who are able to grow like really good facial hair are shaving their beards and just leaving their mustaches on. Obviously, mostly white guys. Because for the most part, you know, Rooster and Goose, they were white guys and I don't want to make like a blanket statement, but I don't think I would look. I've never seen an Asian guy with a mustache. Latin men can definitely pull off mustaches. Actually, I've just never seen an Asian guy being able to pull off a mustache, but most other men of other ethnicities can pull off mustaches if they can grow one. Point is, people on TikTok are now doing this trend where they're shaving their beard because of the fact that they saw Miles Teller in that movie. And I gotta agree. I'm having FOMO. I'm having jealousy. I've always had beard envy, but now I'm having mustache envy. And for the longest time, mustaches were like the dumbest shit. My grandfather, Kiko, he actually has been rocking one since fucking 77. The man has been wearing a mustache for the longest time. He's always had one. Partially because he has no upper lip. That shit is paper thin. So if he doesn't have a mustache, it looks like what the fuck happened at birth. Like you were just like, that shit is just, it's all teeth. It's all like this. It's just all teeth all the time. So he has to grow one out of necessity. So he lucked out there. But I've never had mustache envy until now. because Miles Teller, he fucking rocked that shit with the aviator glass. I was like, yo, this motherfucker looked like a badass. And this movie kind of has revitalized like this feeling that, for good reason, I haven't had in like a really long time, which is like American pride. I am an American first and foremost, right? Obviously, culturally and ethnically, I'm different things, but well, actually, not even culturally, mostly just ethnically. But I am an American, and I take pride in the fact that I'm an American. But obviously, there's a lot of issues, social issues, political issues, all this shit. I don't want to get into all that. That's been going on with our country. So I haven't really been like the biggest patriot because like there's a lot of shit that we need to fucking fix. And I also like don't like the fact that with the common narrative with people who are really pro-America is that they're anti every other country, anti other cultures, or that's what you see the most on like media because that's what they blow up the most, right? And I don't want to be one of these people where they're not well traveled because I would consider myself pretty well traveled for my age. And whenever I go to other countries, I always like to ask like recently on my trip to the UK, I asked some dude that was drunk. I was also drunk. I was like, hey, what's your perspective on Americans? And he's like, every American that I've met here has been amazing. They've been the nicest people. The well-traveled ones are really cool and interesting, and I don't have any qualms with them. But then he goes on to say that the global like perception of Americans isn't the best because we are a very interesting people to look at like from an outside perspective. If you aren't born in America, don't like grow up American or haven't been here for a while, or as a foreign person with foreign values, you look at our country and it's kind of like, oh, what the hell's going on over there? There's all this shit that they need to fix. So that's why I haven't had like the biggest American pride. But watching this movie, I was like, fuck yeah, It's like USA all the way. Like these motherfuckers were rocking like the suits with like the little flag on the like the little patch here. Military was just showing off all their power, all their might, all that good stuff. Pretty dope, choreography in that movie. And just like the mustache was made manly again because he's walking around. He's like with aviators and he gets into the plane and then he starts doing all this crazy shit. And it's just like, damn, like I wish I could grow a mustache, but I can't. I'm stuck with 24/7 permanent peach fuzz, right? PP, permanent peach fuzz. And it fucking sucks because I don't want to be there. All the men on my Colombian side, they grow fantastic facial hair. Andres, who's been here, obviously before my uncle, he grows a full beard like nothing. Kiko, obviously he can too. Julian, he can as well. But of course, because my dad is the Chinese one, I take after his manly genetics. Don't know how the fuck I ended up being 6'4", not gonna lie. That's why he always says I'm the fucking mailman's son. But one of the things I definitely did not get was facial hair. It upsets me because I want to be able to rock a beard. I'm like, I see it kind of growing in a little denser nowadays, and it gives me like a false hope. It's really sad because then I see it, I'm like, yeah, yo, oh shit, like look at my hair, and I'm constantly like sending like Snapchats to my girlfriend and my friends. I'm like, yo, it's looking a little thicker than it was a little bit. Like you see down here, it's going in here, and I get a little bit. It's still not acceptable to wear out. Like if I grow it out and wear it out, people are gonna be like, oh, you want some spare change because you're a fucking homeless person, right? Like you're literally broke because how could you not afford to shave? Or because that's the only thing we can assume that you're doing. You can't afford to shave because who in their right mind would wear what you're wearing out into public, right? And I'm not like crazy. Like I'm not going to go out there and wear this nasty shit out in public. Like I'm not going to shave my like I see dudes be doing this all the time who can't really grow facial hair and they'll just cling on to it and it's like this like wispy shit. I'm not about to do that. That just looks bad. I'd rather just have baby face than have wispy face because who the hell looks like they want to have like dyed cotton, like on a Q-tip when you whatever with it, there's like those wisps that come off. Who wants to look like they took that, dyed it to whatever hair color they have, and then just like crazy glued it onto their face with this little like fucking wispy shit? I don't want to look like that. That looks stupid. So I'm just going to shave it and pray one day my freaking Colombian genetics come in and they just, they smack hard and they let my face bloom and blossom into, a bearded face. My sister actually grows a better mustache than I do. So that's the really fucked up thing about this whole situation is the fact that not only does her ass get to go to Colombia, but she's also more of a Colombian man than I am, apparently, because she grows a thicker mustache than I do. It's fucked up. Gata, I hate you. Don't even talk to me when you come back, honestly. She's not going to be on this podcast. Okay, so, yeah. Next up, I think I'm going to try to record with Vishal hopefully one day, coming up soon. It was recently his birthday, so I want to go over with those exploits. But yeah, that's all I have really for today. Please give me some talking points of conversation here. I'm going to try to do more standalone episodes. It's something that really intimidates me because it's hard, right? It's kind of like just sounding like a crazy man talking in front of the camera. But, let me know how I did. I'm open for constructive criticism. Give me some feedback and points on what you want me to talk about and shit like that, because I'm open to talk about anything. But yeah, hopefully that was entertaining for you guys. Again, if you haven't gotten the chance to, please go watch Top Gun Maverick. It's an amazing movie. And before you watch it, if you haven't watched the first one, watch the first one. The only downside to that is that if you watch them back to back, it's not gonna have the same impact, because I watched the first one years ago, and if I was an 80s kid, this shit would have blown me away, right? Because I would have watched it as a child and then waited decades to watch, the sequel now, which is like it's like you're building up with all this anticipation. So if you watch it back to back, it's not as hard hitting, but I definitely still recommend watching the first one just so you're well versed in the Top Gun universe, so to speak, and you know how badass of a character Maverick is, and you know the dynamic between Goose and Maverick, just to kind of set the stage properly for Top Gun Maverick. That's all I gotta say. Hopefully you go watch it. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a comment, like it, subscribe, share it, do all those things that all those influencers be telling you to do. Yeah, until next time, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you had fun with me. This was a blast to record. I'll actually keep trying to do this more frequently. I promise. I will try. All right? Thank you so much. Until next time, deuces.